Check me out.
Yeah. Hey there, podcast listening people. How you doing? Hope you're having a fantastic day. Really appreciate you tuning in. This is Connor Doobie, your host each and every episode. And me and the team, we're grateful that you're listening to this podcast. Do us a small favor before you leave today, wherever you're listening to this. Don't forget, subscribe and leave a review. It really helps out. We love the feedback, and give us a shout on social media too. We really appreciate hearing from you guys, and it's always fun to interact on social media. Love the DMs on Instagram. Keep it up, guys. Our guest this week, I'm so excited. You've probably heard me blab my face off about health quite a bit, right? And one thing that I'm fascinated by is, if you want to be successful in life, whatever that really means for you, it all comes down to health at the end of the day. Without your health, you have nothing. And I've talked to anywhere from like multi-millionaires, billionaires to small-time founders, and everyone agrees that without health, you have absolutely nothing. And health stems from nourishment, from the food that you eat, which is why I'm very excited about this guest. Jennifer Peters is the founder and foodie of Just BE Kitchen, 100% gluten, grain, refined sugar, and dairy-free fast casual restaurant. It's super unique. There's no other restaurant that is doing this in the state of Colorado. And prior to entering the crazy restaurant life, she served in various head marketing roles. So she is a great marketer. She's worked on the IT and tech side and professional services. She previously worked for a small startup and grew the business from a lifestyle cottage business, air quotes, business, to a multi-million-dollar company before following a passion to close the gap between who she is and what she does, and that led her to forming Just BE Kitchen. So she's traveled all over the world. She loves Denver. Jennifer, I love that you added this into your bio. Here's Jennifer's words. Outside of the kitchen, you'll find Jennifer hiking and spending time with her two baby girls, Oreo and Savvy, who are the cutest four-legged daughters ever. I love it. And you guys are going to love her story. Jennifer is really a sincere, awesome person, and she has kicked ass in the world of entrepreneurship and overcame challenges you couldn't imagine. So, a really inspiring story today. Before we get there, real quick, if you're interested in partnering up with us, sponsoring the show, collaborating in one way or another, we'd love to do it. Send us an email, milehighmentors@gmail.com. Maybe you want to be a guest. Maybe you have a guest in mind as well. milehighmentors@gmail.com, or wherever you see us on social media. Don't hesitate to send us a message there. And so with that, guys, without further ado, please welcome Jennifer Peters to the Mile High Mentors podcast. So first off, let's get rolling. I mean, what is your favorite part about Colorado?
Oh my gosh, the mountains, 100%.
What about the mountains?
I love that the mountains are like 20 minutes away, 15, 20 minutes away. You can have a great hike in the foothills. And then you can basically do that in the morning, come back and have brunch and have sunshine 360 days a year. And you've got good access to food and wine. It's not like you're out in the boonies. You know what I mean? So it's like everything just very accessible in a short space.
Right. Could be dumping 3 feet of snow, and then you could be sunbathing later in the afternoon.
True. Although I am here for the summers more than the winters.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, because you're not originally from Colorado, right?
No, I'm from Florida, but the winters here are like a breeze. I lived in London for over 14 years. So the Colorado winter is like a breeze compared to the wet, chilly, spitting London winters.
Yeah. But are you from London originally? You're from Florida?
I'm from Florida, but I've just spent a lot of time living overseas.
Yeah. So your background, like, are your parents entrepreneurs, or did you, when you were younger, did you always kind of think of yourself you wanted to go into entrepreneurship in one form or another?
Not really. My parents are not entrepreneurs. Well, actually, that's a little unfair. They were both a designer and an architect, and they used to have their own firm together. But in terms of most of their career, it was in a corporate. And I wasn't really like headstrong on being an entrepreneur. I mean, I kind of knew like thought about a business. I actually thought, oh, I'll open up a restaurant when I retire, which is kind of dumb because it's really hard work.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't set out to be an entrepreneur. No.
What were your passions back in the early days?
Food has always been my passion.
17 years.
Yeah. Food has always been a passion, and just kind of generally health and wellness. But I sort of, even up until I got, like, when I decided to go get my MBA, the thought process in my mind was much more like, oh, well, maybe if I get my MBA, I can get a job kind of in the nutrition area or a food area. I definitely didn't see it as me starting my own business.
So food and nutrition was still always a passion early on.
Yes, totally. Travel and food has been like a huge component of my life. I've lived overseas. I've been blessed to see so much of the world. I've seen more of the world than I have of the United States. And so along with my travels, it's really been about food on my travels that I've loved.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that. I've been all over Europe, and food it's such an interesting thing. Food, right? It's more than just food. It's culture. It's relationship building, emotion. Was there somebody early on in your life that distilled that into you? Distilled? Yeah.
I'll go with it.
All right, we'll go with it. We'll go with distilled because you and I are both fans of a cocktail with.
My mom, I would probably credit my mom. So I was never a kid that was allowed to have junk food around the house. We never had potato chips. We never had. Our cabinet looked very different to other kids' cabinets that I would go over, and I would open up their like food cabinet, and I would just stare at like, granola bars and bags of potato chips and who knows, ho-hos and stuff, like whatever. And I would just stare and be like, oh my gosh, all this stuff. My mom definitely had me incorporate kind of healthier snacks at the time, even though I don't necessarily know she thought they were necessarily healthier, but she just wasn't a big junk food person. We never went to like McDonald's or Chick-fil-A. I mean, I used to beg to go to Kentucky Fried Chicken, So she cooked, and when she cooked really like, I guess, exotic meals for at a young age,
You grew up with her cooking most of your meals.
Yes. Yeah. She would also maybe they weren't necessarily the healthiest, but they kind of always had like an edge. Like I can remember for a very young birthday of mine, it was a birthday brunch with friends, and she made chicken le cordon bleu, so it was always kind of an up level for her. I wasn't the kid that got tacos at home.
Yeah. That's so interesting. So you grew up eating clean pretty much for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, I think a version of clean for that era, or as much as she knew, but it was kind of a little bit like a little fancier. I remember her getting steaks and wrapping the steaks with like cheese inside of it. So she just always, we didn't have, I guess, maybe typical kids meals. Like I was never given chicken nuggets as a kid,
That's interesting. Were your parents from the US, or were they from out of the country?
They're from the States.
They're from the States too. Yeah. Interesting. So what led you to go live in London, right? That was to pursue your MBA?
No, I just wanted to travel the world, and I just put it out there. And to make a very long story short, the company that I was working for at the time offered me the opportunity to, like, I was a year out of college or something, and they offered me the opportunity to go over and work in their UK headquarters.
So you got your college education in Florida.
Correct. Yeah.
Got it.
Go Gators.
Okay. So this was after college that you had went off you had a job opportunity that brought you out.
Yeah.
Got it. And what were you doing at that point?
I was in marketing and PR.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Which makes you so damn good at it now. You really are. You're really good at the way you leverage your Instagram page is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, so you're marketing there, and how long were you out of the country for?
It was over 10 years, and then I spent a few years kind of going back and forth because I worked for at that point in time I switched over to work for a British company, and so while I moved back here, I kind of had to go back and forth, and was kind of a dual living.
And your favorite parts of being out of the country?
Oh, definitely that. I mean, I literally have been able to see so much of the world from like using London as a base.
Yeah,
and
because you can get anywhere super cheap from there.
Yeah, and the jobs that I had were, like travel in the States. You have to go from New York to Philly or something like that. Well, in Europe, you go from London to Paris. It's the same amount of time, but you're in a completely different country. So you just get to see a lot more in this like same distance.
Any favorite locations?
Oh God, so many. But Italy and France will always have my heart.
Because they're best tied with the food?
Totally.
Really?
And wine.
And wine?
I don't know. Egypt has got a special place in my heart, and so does Argentina as well. So
interesting. Yeah. So, and then what led you to coming back to the States?
So I knew at a point I was like, I could do what I'm doing for the rest of my life and make great money and feel soulless, or I could figure out if there's just more out there, which I believe there is.
Yeah. What do you mean by that? Expand on that a little bit.
I just wanted more fulfillment. I wanted to feel like, it's a little cliche. I don't necessarily know that I said I want to make a difference, but I knew that there was more richness to life than I was feeling in my corporate or my job, my career. And I also felt like who I wasn't what I did. So I was at that point that I really said, okay, I want to start to close the gap between who I am and what I do on a day-to-day basis. And that was kind of the start of that.
Did you feel that connection early on in your corporate career, like almost right off the bat, like this is not what I should be doing? Or you started your career and then as you got further into it, you're feeling less happy, less satisfied and everything along those lines?
Definitely the latter. Like I think being in a corporate really served me for a long time. And I was really blessed with some great bosses that helped me rise very quickly. And I was able to be really hands-on at a pretty young age doing things. So I just kept having curiosity and wanting to I had a lot of hunger. And then you get to a stage where you're
literally had a lot of hunger.
Yeah. Good one. And then you get to a stage where you kind of know that it really doesn't matter what industry you're in or what kind of specific job that you're focused on. Like you'll be able to tackle it, and it's kind of the same. It's all the same components, And I just thought, I don't know if I want to do this forever. So
what was the transition from that?
So I talked to I was in a pretty senior role in a company, and I just said, look, I really feel like I don't know why, but I feel like I really want to do something that is more meaningful to me, and I feel like getting an MBA might be a path to that. I don't know if that is, but I had something inside of me that said I really wanted to have more finance knowledge, being a marketeer.
And this was when? This was just so people understand timelines here?
This was 2010.
Okay.
Yeah, 2010 to 2012. And my boss was like, do it. And if you do it, you should go back to the States and get your MBA because that's where all the best MBA programs are. And I was like, and he was like, only go top 3. And in my mind, I'm like, I'll do like an online course. I don't even care. You know what I mean? And then once you start to kind of get into the process and you look at the cost, you're like, wow, I might as well go big, go home,
Right.
So I only applied to one school, flew over for an interview, got in. And like a lot of things in my life, it's just very like, all right, let's do it. And I'll figure out the rest later. even moving overseas, my boss was like, do you want to go over to London? I'm like, I don't care where I go, just send me. And, I flew over on a Saturday and started work on a Monday. So
Wow.
it was kind of like that for me with MBA school. I kind of like, okay, well, I'll just apply to this top 3 school, see if I get in. Oh, I got in. Okay, let's go. We'll figure it out. Figure out
Is
how
that
to
a
pay
quality that you kind of hold throughout your life is commit, figure it out later. Commit first, figure it out later.
Yeah. Like I just trust that I'm going to be taken care of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That'll work out,
I think that's massively undervalued a lot of the time. People overthink stuff too much, right?
I agree. And I think back to those moments. I actually, being an entrepreneur, I think through stuff way more than I have in other aspects of my life. And I have to train myself to go, hey, look, you can be a calculated risk taker. You can just dive into something and that you'll be supported by the universe or God, Buddha, nature, whatever you believe in. And so, yeah.
God, Buddha, nature?
God, Buddha, nature. That's what I say.
Cool.
So
I have to write the God, Buddha, nature Bible or something. God, Buddha, nature script.
So I just jumped in. I was like, all right, I'm in, let's go. I mean, I lived overseas, but I got accepted into a US program. So they're like, well, how are you going to do this? I'm like, I'll just fly back every week. No biggie. And
which was finance.
I went to Kellogg's. So it was I
love their cereals. So good.
So I did that. And then, it was through kind of that program that I, realized it was basically through that program where we were asked to pitch business concepts, and I pitched Just BE. And the class kind of voted on it. And so we started working on it. And my professor said, I feel like this has some legs. Maybe you should speak to somebody in the industry that's a Kellogg grad. He put me in touch with a guy named Brad Bloom, who's the former CEO of Burger King and started Seasons 52 and CEO of Olive Garden stuff. And Brad and I just kind of hit it off. And he was like, I just feel like you have a passion for this and you should take it outside the classroom. So then I was like, okay.
And this was while you're still getting your MBA.
Yes.
So you started building, but
I didn't start building Just BE at that point. We were building it as part of like a class project.
Right.
But Brad had and so we spoke to him in the confines of a class project. And then he said to me afterwards, he's like, I just feel like you have a real passion for this and maybe you should consider doing this post-graduation. So I did.
Yeah. And what led you to bringing it out here to Colorado?
So I guess kind of through that whole process, I realized, and getting my MBA over here, I kind of was like, I had always said I don't want to move out to the States unless like I'm going to feel like it's right. Like I'm not just going to accept a job and move over. Like I want to feel like I really want to be back. And through circumstances in London and changing jobs and the MBA and just a bunch of stuff, I'm like, I think it's time now to go back. And so when I started thinking about the cities to go back to, and I was thinking of like a good demographic for Just BE, I don't know where it came from. Portland and Denver came into my mind, and I had never been to either city.
Yeah.
So,
what year was this about?
2013, 2012, 2013.
So out of just intuition, you're like, Portland or Denver, that's where I need to open this restaurant.
Yeah.
Which you had already built the plans for, built the model for.
Yeah, I was in the process of kind of finalizing the models, tweaking, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, these two cities. Well, I knew that personally as well. I didn't want to live in a big city. Like I'd live in one of the world's biggest cities, and I wanted at least 2 seasons, if not 4, because London has 1. And
London has 1 season?
Yeah, all year. It's like gray all year round.
I thought it snows and then there's summer and like I thought it was pretty cyclical, like Denver for whatever reason. I don't know.
It's like gray and rainy.
Oh,
maybe you get some sunshine in April. I'm being a little unfair to the friends, but
it just sounds depressing. Really, yeah.
So
it's like the basement you're in. And those of you guys that are listening, Jen is like in this. It looks like where The Grudge was actually shot.
Very glamorous. Look, I have.
You got the pipes.
And to be clear, this is the basement of
Just Be.
A very old commercial building. Yes.
Yeah.
Not like my house, but it is kind of my house, actually.
Yeah, you probably are there enough to count as your house.
It's actually not as sad looking to the left or to the right.
Oh, okay.
Well, to the right it is, but
you just pick the most depressing corner just to keep it interesting.
Yeah, totally.
Waiting for like ghosts to pop out of the walls over there.
No, it's not that bad. I'm kind of out of the way so that when the team walk by for food and stuff like that, then I'm not in the way. Yeah. So I wanted to live somewhere that was like 20 minutes from the mountains, had at least 2 seasons and had great food and wine. And Portland has got great food and wine, but they don't have the weather. So
yeah. Oh my God. Their food is food truck. Yeah.
They've got the best product out there in the Pacific Northwest. It's so good. So yeah, so that's why I'm here.
Yeah, and so
I spent a month here and I spent a month there. 2 weeks here in August, 2 weeks there.
So you did actually go spend some time to make a final decision.
Yeah. I was really lucky because my job at the time I could be virtual. So I spent 2 weeks working in Denver in August and 2 weeks working in Portland in August, and I was like, oh, Portland's great. And then 2 weeks working in Denver in December and 2 weeks working in Portland in December. And I was like, no, Portland at all. So.
And your full intent at that time was brick and mortar restaurant. I need to find this location and start building.
Yep.
What kind of fears were going through your head at that time?
I think at that time I was too damn naive to really have fear. It was more when I moved to the States and I realized the sheer cost and the challenges with financing and having to sign a lease when you don't have a bank loan, and you can't get a bank loan without signing a lease. And I think that's more when stuff kicked in. At that time I was like, I'll just move to Denver. I'll open up a restaurant. No biggie.
Yeah. So what was the process like? Did you find the location and then build out the menu, build out like the sourcing and everything or did you do all that in your home kitchen and then identify the location and build from there?
Kind of neither. So the grand plan was like, I'll move here. I'll work for my UK job, like from 5 in the morning to 1. And then I'll basically find the location for Just Be. And it just didn't really happen that way. I mean, I put out 56 letters of intent on spaces and got rejected on all of them. Either rejected or they started to go through the process and then for whatever reason it falls through. And as an independent, landlords, well, first of all, Denver's been in a boom. And so they just want a lot of money, and they usually want people with multiple locations or franchises. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard as kind of like independent. Plus, I don't come from a restaurant background. So a lot of them are like, oh, we want somebody with a restaurant background.
These are the landlords that you're going through to find
the landlords, yeah. And I wasn't a chef. So they're kind of like, well, you need to be a chef. I mean, these are all just kind of the general things that kind of landlords say. However, once I got a chef, and then that ticks off chef and experience, then it's like, oh, but you guys have never opened a concept. And you're like, yeah, but neither are these guys, and then it just starts to get like, it just kind of, some of those conversations start to turn weird. You're like, you can prove down every point.
Right.
Like, no. So, that gluten-free, not everybody's gluten-free. That kind of concept will never work. How are you going to appeal to non-gluten-free people? We've got that a lot. So you go through that process, and that was over 2 years.
Wow. And all the while you're still kind of maintaining your job in Europe at that time?
Yeah, I'm working here for that and going back and forth.
Wow. And so what point did you completely cut that off and go full in on Just Be?
So I had basically gotten into like the finals of a pretty cool concept here Denver that's got multiple like locations and like a kind of like a food hall kind of thing. And you go through tryouts and stuff, and we got to the very end and had beaten out quite a few people that
you had your chef at this point in time?
Yeah.
Now current head chef?
Yeah. And not the same one now, but a different one.
Yeah.
And we got rejected right in at the end of, pretty much it was like a Christmas present. We got told no. And then at the same time, I was involved in a kind of a female accelerator program that I had been taken through to the final stages. And because we were pre-revenue, we were also told no. So I got this great gift in December. And then my partner and I at the time decided we're going to Australia for a month in January for one of my best friend's weddings from London. And he was like, don't like, let's just go have fun. Don't stress about this, but maybe think about doing food trucks or retail products, in the meantime. Maybe you change your business plan, but we can think about that while we're away in Australia. So we said, okay, we went and came back from Australia. And to make a very, very long story short, he was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer right when we got back. And I also had been desperate to leave my job, but was too afraid to kind of jump without having this location sorted. And that just kind of started, like 2015 was just this big roller coaster in life. And I decided ultimately to resign from the job that I was in, but it was very complicated because I was a shareholder and a director of the board. And that's not an easy process. And my partner's had diagnosis. Everything was just like very roller coaster and just kind of tragic. It was a really tough year. There was a lot of transitioning, a lot of letting go of different people in life and whatnot. And I just decided, okay, in order to kind of save myself, I've got to just get out of this situation. So yeah, so it didn't, that's kind of what was the straw that broke the camel's back to say like, hey, look, just let me just get out of this and quit and try to move. But it wasn't for like a whole year that I was actually able to do that.
Wow.
So
let's talk. And did your friend beat cancer?
Sadly, he did not. He passed away almost exactly a year later.
Oh, I'm very sorry to hear that.
Okay. Yeah. It was very, like, that year was like a big, it was just a big transition for me. And it was really the birth of Just Be as well. Right.
Well, some of the, talking to so many entrepreneurs, it's almost like the biggest downfall in their life when they can quit, throw everything away. That's like that last aggressive dip before the tipping point and things start going up, right? Things can only go up from the lowest point.
I mean, honestly, I kind of think too, I'm there. I mean, I definitely believe in God, and I'm there going, why is this not working? Why is this not happening? Why am I not moving anywhere? Why am I not finding space? Blah, 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 blah. And was super frustrated and ready to throw in the towel almost, and then I think sometimes your prayers will be answered, but you also have to meet it. And the reality is I still had my job. That's not to say like to quit your job and start your passion right away, I think, but I had been side hustling for a while. And really the only thing I could do at that stage was to say, okay, I'm all in, because you can't really sign a lease if you're not all in.
Right.
And that's the reality. And so I think that, and unfortunately, sometimes we have to learn through painful processes, and rather than
sometimes joy. The best learning experiences are those painful processes.
Yeah. And so that year was just a big year of healing and me kind of becoming into a business owner and really birthing Just Be. And
what was that location before you guys were there, by the way?
It was like a dive breakfast joint.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And then, so what year did Just Be open?
We opened in April of 2017, last year in April.
Yeah, that's incredible. So walk us through everything that's kind of transpired since then.
Oh, geez. It's been a blast. And I think entrepreneurship is literally a, I guess it's a very expensive, but because I was going to say it's a free lesson, but it's kind of very expensive in the same way. Lesson in self-development and professional development, if you like, but it's really a huge self-development journey.
Right.
And you really quickly learn where your strengths are, and you learn, I mean, I knew what my strengths were coming into this, and I knew what my weaknesses were, but man, are they put under a magnifying glass when you start a business. And we opened our doors at the end of April. We decided to only open up for breakfast and lunch at that time. And Jesus, I had no fucking clue what I was doing. And I look back to that point then, and I look to where we are now, and we're still learning as we go, but it's so much more fun now because, you know, you kind of go through that.
Got a flow. You kind of got flow going and everything like that.
Yeah. I mean, the stories when we opened, it was terrible.
Yeah. Like what? Like what are some of the ones that come top of mind?
I mean, just before we ever opened, you know, I was getting an SBA loan from the bank, which is really hard to get.
Did you get financing in the very beginning? Like
I got an SBA loan.
Yeah,
and that's
got it.
Like less than 1% of restaurants ever get funded. And SBA loans are really hard.
So the uniqueness of your concept was enough that you could go out and get a.
I would love to say that that was true. I don't think that that's true. I think the reality of the situation is I saw multiple.
You're a badass sales lady and sold them on it?
I think that's a small part. I think eventually, you know, that's it. But I saw 100 bankers. I saw probably about 20 bankers. And
20 bankers.
I was told
guys that are listening right now that turn away after they get told no once or twice or 3 times. You went to 20 people before you got a yes.
Yeah, and you're told like some really awful things. Like I think the worst that I was told was, "Well, you're not married." And I was like, "What does being married have anything to do with my financing?" Yeah, well, your husband can't support you. Okay. All right, thanks. That's great to know.
I am an independent woman. Don't need no man.
It's just like, thanks.
Yeah.
You know, you're told all kinds of stuff. And so that was really tough. And finally, a female banker really believed in me and got the loan approved and everything. She believed in me. She believed in the concept. She could really see the uniqueness. And I do say female because statistically more females are denied financing than men. But she got it all through, and about 10 days, right before about 6 weeks before we're supposed to open, the bank gets acquired. And to make a long story short, the deal goes away. The deal terms change because the bank acquisition. And so now I'm in a situation where I have a government guarantee on the SBA loan, which is great, but the local bank is like, unless you sign up to these new really arduous terms, like, you know, it's a no. So she said she's like feeling terrible. Everyone at the bank is jumping ship, going to other banks. So I go to this other bank that had actually agreed to fund me, but I had turned them down and had gone with her. Mm-hmm. So they tell me, oh yeah, this is great. This is a snap, 2 weeks, no problem, financing, da-da-da. And then after putting me through 6 weeks of a kind of a process, which is highly unusual, and he keeps calling me and saying, well, now you need to do this, and well, you need to do this. And then they finally ask for a guarantor on the loan, which really banks don't do unless just before you're about to sign. And we turn the guarantor paperwork around in a day, and they're like, we can't finance you because you're a startup. And that's really kind of like day one. Like if you don't finance startups, like you don't continue the conversation. So here we are now, pretty much a week, maybe 10 days before opening. And I've got no financing, but I've signed a lease, and I've got staff, and I've got vendors, and I'm waiting on the equipment to be delivered. And it was a shit show. And you break down crying a couple of times, and then all of a sudden you just kick into survival mode, and you're like, all right, well, here's 10 credit cards and we'll do some equipment financing here. And somehow you just make it freaking work. And then another bank with the guarantee, like it took another 6 weeks for another bank to finance it. But you just have to go into this like super quick survival mode, and which crushes many people. Come on. Yeah.
Man, that's nothing about your story has been usual. I mean, that the work around is incredible. And also like what's interesting about your restaurant too, and why I want to do this podcast with you. I get approached by restaurants nonstop to do Mile High Mentors podcast, but it really is unique. There's no other concept in Colorado that does what you do, right? Like it's 100% paleo, no refined sugars, no dairy, Whole30 approved, like everything. But you yourself don't have significant food allergies, right? Or any like health issues. I don't. So why? What was the passion behind that? Which I found really interesting. I feel like someone who opens a restaurant like what you did, they'd have to go through some, painful process and have health issues, and led them to this, like the restaurant that you opened.
Well, yes, I agree. Or you can be pissed about a few things. So I was doing like semi-competitive athlete in London with touch rugby, and by no means professional or anything like that, but 6 days a week doing sports. And I was a vegetarian for 17 years and had gone vegan. Wow. Gone vegan while I was getting my MBA, so part of this as well, or right before that. And I basically gained weight, and it didn't work for me. And so I went to see one of my teammates on the pitch who was a holistic nutritionist and very advanced for that time, meaning, this was like 6 or 7 years ago, really before paleo was kind of being used, as a term.
Right.
And went to see him, and he had me start to incorporate healthy fats and animal proteins. And basically my body just really responded to it. My performance on the pitch increased, I lost weight. And it was great. And after about 6 months of kind of eating that way, I snapped my ACL on the pitch. And to make a very long story short, my knee barely swelled because I had zero toxins and inflammatory foods in my body. Wow. And so even that night after I snapped the ACL, I was at home making dinner, and I had stairs in my flat in London. And whilst I was hobbling, like it was unlike many other ACL stories. And my recovery, or my road to getting surgery, and then my time after surgery was really great. And the doctors were really impressed with my range of motion and everything. And I just didn't have a lot of inflammatory foods in my body. So I could see the power of that. And then I decided, well, this is a lifestyle that I really want to make sure that I continue to eat. And I'm pissed because if I don't make my food, I can't eat anywhere else. And I'm also pissed because if I go to, small town Ohio, which is where like a lot of my mom's side of the family's from, they don't have access to anything. And it's not even the accessibility, but once you do get access, then it's at a premium that you have to pay. And this kind of food shouldn't be so hard to be accessible. It should be fast, and it should be at a price point that's more attractive to the masses. And that's really kind of what drove me to where we are today.
It's interesting. We live in the best time ever, right? Mm. Like we just legalized hemp yesterday. Mm. How big is that? Like how outrageously big is that? And I think the anti-inflammatory lifestyle, I'm so glad. Like I grew up kind of similar to you. My parents, I grew up with two families. One of them ate junk food all the time, total junk food. The other was like all whole foods and, natural eating and everything like that. So I've always seen this like push
dichotomy.
And pull. Yeah. But that's incredible that you found that early on and have built a passionate business around that, and it's working for you, right? You guys are doing pretty well. Yeah.
And I hope so. I think so. It sounds pretty busy up there. Probably get up there. But
those of you listening, I'll go in there and sit on a Sunday afternoon and just work there all day, and people are coming in and out all day eating, and And Jen herself will come serve you food and just share her amazing smiley face, which is great.
Oh,
like, positivity, I also think, is another thing that you and your staff really bring to the facility. Is you go in there and like everyone is smiling. You've got like positive messages all over the wall. That stuff is healing, right? That stuff, not only the food, but also that kind of messaging is so healing for you.
Thank you. And that's the idea, is that I really wanted us to be able to serve. I say like we're not just trying to serve food, but we're trying to change the way food is served. And because I do think that food is core to overall wellness, but we really wanted the space to be so much more than the food. So the uplifting quotes, and we do, weekly wellness events, and all of that plays into just being a better version of yourself.
Do you follow any like inspirational people or any favorite
Yes.
books under that genre? Like, what do you, because some people end up the way you do and they never consume anything from other people, or they're like super heavy into like Tony Robbins, for example. But what's that, Kate? Who is that for you?
Brene Brown is one of my favorites.
Huh.
I mean,
I've never heard of her.
Oh, she's amazing.
Brene.
I'm actually got Dare to Lead, which is her latest book, on my Audible right now. I absolutely love, Oprah's Super Soul Sunday was a lot of inspiration to me. I don't get to watch that as much anymore. I don't own a TV either. Glennon Doyle, awesome. Liz Gilbert, awesome.
Inspirational women.
Yeah, I guess so. And I have been, I'm actually doing Tony Robbins coaching right now. So
Are you really? That's awesome.
Yeah.
How's that going?
It's good. Yeah, it's really good.
Good.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he's on fire.
Yeah, Tony Robbins is incredible. So what's the big end picture? What's a big vision for all of this? Where do you see yourself at the end of the line?
Well, I tell you what, it's a lot of work and a lot of tears and sweat for one location. So the goal has always been at the onset to really disrupt the fast casual industry and to be the gluten-free of Chipotle. Or the Chipotle of gluten-free.
So more brick and mortars like what you have there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the goal is to have multiple locations and to be able to go into markets and allow people to have this food. If they're not cooking at home, then, come eat with us. And the goal has also been, which if you haven't, I mean, you know our menu, but a lot of people think, oh, gluten-free, grain-free, refined sugar-free, dairy-free. And we're also soy, peanut, corn, and legume-free. Like, what do you eat? That must be like, pick your protein and some vegetables. You
guys have so much on your menu.
Yeah, like we really take.
I go in there and eat brownies for breakfast.
Yeah, we've really taken the approach of like, hey, this is about comfort food, and we want everyone to feel satisfied and fulfilled, and to not feel like eating this way is about stripping things back and lack and sacrifice. And so our menu doesn't really scream health food, but it's just done in such a healthy and wholesome way. Yeah.
Well, it was interesting because you said, you tried the vegetarian thing and then you went vegan, and, I have celiac. So like I went through years and years of just trying to find the right freaking diet. And I tried going vegan myself, and similar to you, like I was more on the decline after that. But everyone is so biologically diverse that I think everyone's on their own kind of health diet plan. And
and I really don't believe that my job is to tell people you need to eat this way or not.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to do is say, here is a place that has options for you, which takes out a lot of the inflammatory ingredients, and you choose what works for you or doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't cook in any dairy, and we don't incorporate dairy into our dishes. We have one dish that's got raw Parmesan, and you can take that off. But we do have grass-fed cheddar and raw Parmesan in-house that can be added if somebody wants that. And there's no judgment. Like, that's the way. But I'm not here to tell people how to eat or what's right for them.
Right. Well, and that was what I was going to say. Whether you're on, again, there's this huge shift happening. People are changing the way they eat. They're going to more anti-inflammatory. But whether you are vegan, vegetarian, keto, paleo. Your restaurant really does have something for everybody in that anti-inflammatory genre, which is incredible.
Yeah. And often we have people coming in store who choose to eat this way, but maybe their partner or their friend or their family doesn't. Yeah. And what we often find is that people are saying, you know, like, hey, look, I don't eat this way, but this food was really good and tasty. And that's the whole point. Like we have this motto when we're tasting particularly baked products in house, but everything is like, is this good or is it good for gluten-free? And we're like, no, it's not good for gluten-free. It's just got to be effing good. Yeah. And if it's not, then it doesn't make its way on.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys have such incredible food. So, what are, real quick here, and then we can start wrapping up, but, I didn't even realize how long we've been going so far. What are some of the biggest misconceptions of opening up a restaurant?
I think number one, people think you open, they'll come. And that's just not the case. I mean, it is still a year and a half in, and I still struggle on a day-to-day basis being comfortable with, knowing who's going to come through that door. So I feel much happier when we've got catering orders that are booked and stuff like that, because then I know that that's revenue coming in. So it's not, if you build it, they will come. There's so much effort. I put so much effort into our social media channels, and it's hard. It's work. And there are days when you lie in bed at night going, God, nobody came in today, And then there's other days you're like, oh my God, it was a Tuesday and we crushed it. How did that happen?
Yeah.
So I think that's one misconception. I think another
is that it's much more of an inconsistent business flow in the beginning than maybe what I think
people just think, oh, if I build it
open
and
a location, people will come running in the door.
Yeah. And that's
I think you also, but because of the style of your food, I think you've been benefited by a lot of the big influencers out there here in Denver, right? Because they've also resonated with your message, your concept, and have promoted you out through their social feeds.
Yeah. I mean, we are so blessed that a lot of people in the health and wellness community have supported us, like hands down. Like that's just been so great. I mean, so great and so unexpected. Not unexpected as in we doubted that community, but just the gratitude that we get from that community has been really lovely.
Yeah.
But still, it's hard. And you're one location in one part of town, and even your biggest, fanatics who might live an hour away can't come every day. You know what I mean? So, or even 30 minutes away, people get busy. So that's been, I think, just really tough. And you've got to work really hard at kind of managing that flow. I also think that it's really, staffing is super, super, super hard. I mean, we're in a very tight labor market. I work with a lot of like college students or transients, and this industry generally is also very difficult to fulfill. But just mostly
retain also.
Yeah. And the economy is just in a
and your staff has to be pretty well educated in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes the menu knowledge is really overwhelming to some great people that even might have industry experience, but we really drill it in. Like it's so important to have the menu knowledge because we could hurt people, or we want to be really transparent with the ingredients, and and that's a lot sometimes for a 23-year-old to take on, so we're trying to figure out like best training programs and make it easier with menu knowledge. And, hopefully next year we're going to come out for some tools with the customer too. But that's just that staffing and training has been 5 times as hard as everyone told me it would be. And, we've got so many customers that are full of gratitude when they come, but equally you get customers that, if a guest gets, just forgets one thing, and you're dealing, these kids they're not trained in conflict management or anything like that. So it's really tough because I'm very protective of my team, and when we make a mistake, we'll treat you well. But they do make mistakes and they're young and they're not.
But also Jen would be the one to tell you off if you're wrong.
A customer?
Yeah. You'd probably go after someone if they were being rude or mean to your staff. There's always those shitty people. No matter what, you're going to have negative people no matter how well you treat them.
Yeah. I mean, I've never really told a customer off, but I will be very firm. I mean, we've had some guests that have, I think, been a little unfair in some situations, particularly in how they've managed members of my team. And I have said, like, hey, look, that, like, totally happy that we'll replace an egg that the yolk has been broken, but like, these are kids, I mean, and they're just people. It doesn't matter. They're kids. Like, they're not trained for certain situations, or they're not maybe mature enough to deal with certain situations too, so, but yeah, I mean, we're talking about the less than 1% that are sometimes negative or hard.
And I'm sure your background has still, even though it's been a challenge, I'm sure your corporate background has benefited you so much just in structuring and managing people and training and everything along those lines.
It's hard though. It's super hard. You're on all the time. Like, you make a mistake in the corporate realm, it's usually not where the customer can see it right away. So there's 100,000 people that you can stop and see it, right? But here it's on, and a plate might accidentally go out to the customer that you were trying to stop, but you were being pulled into another direction and something's happened. And, like, communication is all in real time here. You don't have instant messaging platforms to communicate with each other, like in the moment, you know what I mean? It's like, okay. So it can be really hard. It's also the biggest buzz when everything is in a flow and we're all going and it's so fun and we're just jamming. And like, these guys work really effing hard. Like, I mean, it is sometimes like 6 hours. If we're pumped on a Saturday, it's like 6 hours standing or running around, which depending on what position you're in, and talking to people all day long. There's not many other jobs anywhere that maybe a teacher that you're like, I mean, a teacher is always on in front of kids, doesn't really get, but that's what it's like here. Like, you can't hide out, and if you're having a bad day, these guys.
We could maybe go hide out down there. Down here, right?
Maybe, but not for long. I'm not
for long
up there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they just deserve so much respect. Like, it is a really hard job in this industry.
Oh, absolutely. I started working in restaurants. This is why I'm so grateful for people like you, because I would never go into the restaurant business. It's two businesses I would personally never do, retail and restaurant, because of all the challenges that you just shared and overcame. But I'm super grateful for it because of that. But I didn't even ask you this. Have you worked in restaurants before the restaurant?
Like when I was in college.
Yeah. Okay. So you'd had some restaurant experience. It wasn't completely like just out of context.
Yeah. But I mean, I was a cocktail waitress or a waitress, and I just had fun, like, talking to people and delivering food. I didn't have to memorize an entire menu of a bunch of allergens and ingredients, and I didn't have to worry about all the operations, and I just got told what to do. I mean, it's very different,
Yeah. That's awesome. No, me and so many others are super grateful for you. And we'll have to, a year from now, we'll jump back on. We'll have to get an update from you.
That would be a pleasure.
While I got you here, anything else that you want to share out to our audience, the community, just anything else that's on your mind?
The one bit of advice that I wish I had gotten from entrepreneurs before I kind of dove into this is, I thought that when I made that decision to like jump and go for it and give up the job and, put all my eggs in this basket and just go, I thought then it was going to be like unicorns and rainbows, and, the gold brick road was going to be standing there, and it was like, holla. And it's not like that. And I think entrepreneurs just need to realize, like, that doesn't mean that it's not meant to happen. It just means that you're going to be supported, but it like, who wants easy, right? Like, we choose our hard. And that's the thing, is that this isn't just hard. You're choosing your hard. And I still wouldn't choose anything else. Like, on the days that have been the hardest, I'm like, and there are days when I'm like, okay, what should I just start looking for should I just start looking for a job? I could be a VP of marketing somewhere. Okay, let's, and then you're like, no, I come back to this, But I think I was listening to an entrepreneur from a mastermind group of mine this morning on Instagram Live, and she was saying, like, we just had it all planned out that this, and this was going to happen. And she's like, and it's not happening that way, and it's soul destroying.
Which is almost always the case.
Yeah, and nobody told me that.
Yeah.
You know?
So that was information that you hadn't got beforehand.
No,
yeah.
I thought, like, if you pursue your passion, like, it's all going to be butterflies and unicorns and rainbows, and it's all going to be a smooth sailing, and we're going to be in the flow, and it's great. And you know, and the other piece of advice I'd say is you don't love everything about your passion. You know,
right.
Like, I was like, why do I not like doing X? But this is what I want to do. And the fact that I don't like this, and maybe I'm not supposed to be doing this, and And that's just not the case. Like, you speak to a lot of entrepreneurs and they're like, well, I love working with clients, you know, or wellness practitioner. I love working with clients. I hate sales. That's okay. It's still your passion. There's just going to be parts of your passion that you don't like, and that's okay. I blog about this too. Like, that was a big thing for me.
So interesting. No, I love that you said that. I think it's, especially the world we live in, social media and everything, people use, if you're in that VP of marketing job and you're even have that thought of like quitting and starting your business, and you see your entrepreneur friends who are having fun and living the life, it's fake. It's not real. Every single successful entrepreneur is always on. You always got to be on. There is no just lounging on the beach. That's not the commonality of entrepreneurship. Like, we're an 18-year-old business. My dad and I are in partnership in our company, and we just had one of our best Decembers ever. But also now it's like, oh, we have a key employee leaving, and we got to scramble to like fill this position. We just got a ton of new clients, new revenue. Like, there's always something, and it's going to suck, but it's the end of the day where you're doing the things that suck that keep you passionate, which keeps you filled up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. I try on Instagram, because there's also this thing about, should I be showing Jen Peters on Instagram, or should I be just doing Just the Kitchen? And I kind of like, I don't have that all figured out, but I'm still weaving it together. But I try on Instagram, like, to really focus on the food and, the products that we're doing. And I have stories that I tell on there. Then my blog is where I really talk about like it's not the hardships of entrepreneurship. It's still what I'm choosing into.
Right.
But it's, kind of I call it the conscious CEO.
Love it. So you're documenting your story kind of as you go along.
Yeah.
Blog. Where can people find your blog? You
can find it on justbekitchen.com and through Instagram at justbekitchen.
Yeah. No, you do great on Instagram. Like, again, I follow a lot of the restaurants here in Denver and Colorado, and I like when Jen's face comes floating along in the stories, and you're, just sharing a story about the day, or you got your cute little puppies.
Oh my God, they're the best. They're the cutest.
Yeah. Yeah, because again, like you have a pretty decent following on Instagram compared to like other restaurants that have been around for years. I think the influencers have done,
totally.
have really been able to highlight, and you, like, you are Just Be Kitchen. Just Be Kitchen is just an extension of you, your personality, your thoughts, your perspective. And that is true. You walk into Just Be, there's positivity all over the walls. Jen's running around but has a big smile on her face, talking to all the customers and everything. You got something great going on, and I'm glad we're able to do this.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. Where location? Where can people find you? How can people get into contact with you?
The corner of 15th and Platt, in front of the big REI in Denver. So it's 2364 15th Street.
Do you know what they're building across the street yet?
Yeah, it's office buildings.
Oh,
yeah.
Used to have Whole Foods over there, which
that's too close to Union Station.
Yeah.
But
yeah, not Whole Foods, Natural Grocers.
They tore that down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually right next to me now.
That's where you can find us, and an Instagram or Facebook at Just Be Kitchen.
Awesome. Well, thanks again so much. Really appreciate it. I know you're super busy. Guys that are listening, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review before you leave today. We'll see you on the next one.